Quality education. Everyone can help to make sure that we meet global goals. Use these 10 targets to create action to ensure quality education. Target 2. Equal access to quality pre-primary education. By 2030, ensure that all girls and boys have access to quality early childhood development, care and pre-primary education so that they are ready for primary education. Target 3. Equal access to affordable technical, vocational, and higher education. By 2030, ensure equal access for all women and men to affordable and equality technical, vocational, and tertiary education, including university. Target 4. Increase the number of people with relevant skill for finance success. By 2030, substantially increase the number of youth and adults who have relevant skills, including technical and vocational skill and employment, decent jobs, and entrepreneurships. Okay, next. Target 5. Eliminate all discrimination in education. By 2030, eliminate gender disparity in education and ensure equal access to all levels of education and vocational training of the vulnerable, including persons with disability, indigenous people, and children in vulnerable situations. Target 6. Universal literacy and numeracy. By 2030, ensure that all youth and substantial proportion of adults, both men and women, achieve literacy and numeracy. Target 7. Education for sustainable development and global citizenship. By 2030, ensure that all learners acquire the knowledge and skills needed to promote sustainable development, including, among others, to education for sustainable development, sustainable lifestyles, human rights, gender equality, promotion of a culture of peace and non-violence, global citizenship and appreciation of cultural diversity and of culture's contribution to sustainable development. Target 4. Build and upgrade inclusive and safe schools. Build and upgrade education facilities that assure disability and gender-sensitive provide safe, non-violent, inclusive, and effective learning environments for all. Target 4B. Expand higher education scholarships for developing countries. By 2020, substantially expand globally the number of scholarships available to developing countries, in particular less developed countries, small island, developing states, and African countries for enrollment in higher education, including vocational training and information and communications technology, technical, engineering, and scientific programs in developed countries and other developing countries. Target 4C. Increase the supply of qualified teachers in developing countries. By 2030, substantially increase the supply of qualified teachers, including through international cooperations for teacher training in developing countries, especially less developed countries and small island developing states. Everyone, next part is a general Discussion on the conversation between teacher and student has been given here in this article. The topic for conversation between student and teacher could be anything such as being late to future exams, any subjects, coming late to the class, being a good or poor perform in the class, regarding homework, etc. The goal of the conversation is to communicate. The use of communication is to unite with others. Our relationships with others can happen without conversation, and often talk can stop it with the attachment. What is a simple conversation? A conversation is when two or more people talk about something. This is natural, usually unplanned. True, the people may have concerns in common. Conversations are one of the primary types of human communication. How can I be a good student? Dialogue. Perform well at school. 2. Be obedient. 3. Speak in English. 4. Always be pleasant in the class. 5. Do the homework regularly. 6. Versus teacher talk time. Teacher talk time is the time spent by teachers talking in the class rather than students. One key component of many contemporary procedures is to decrease the amount of GTT as much as possible to allow students opportunities to talk and learn from talking. What is a conversation with an example? The definition of a conversation is a distribution of views and ideas. An example of a conversation is two friends talking while having tea together. What are the types of conversation? There are 4 types of conversation. 1 is debate, 2 is dialogue, 3 is discourse, 4 is diatribe. Hey student, you know what is common quality issues in education? You don't know? If you don't know, I want to explain about it to you. The U.S. education system from the highest levels of government right down to the classroom needs to deliver the knowledge and skills that students need and to respond as those needs change. Quality, truth, and process can help. Some starting points, accountability methods are needed to judge the performance of processes within the system. Accountability means establishing,
1. A systematic method to assure stakeholders, educators, policymakers, and the public that schools are producing desired results. 2. Common elements that are applied to all participants. These should include clear goals, progress indicators, measures, analysis of data, reporting procedures, help for participants not meeting goals, and consequences and sanctions. From accountability methods, the need for continuous improvement can become clear. Alignment. A curriculum must match relevant testing programs, evaluation measures, and requirements. 3. Federal view. Student requirements have been determined by the federal government in the No Child Left Behind Act. 4. Annual progress is needed to meet proficiency standards for all students mandated by 2013-14. 5. This accountability system is based primarily on assessments, but also can include other reliable and valid indicators, such as graduation rates from high school. 6. Academic achievement standards are the goals and report cards are the reporting procedures. 7. Seeks to ensure that students are performing at grade level. 8. State view. State criteria and assessments are in place and are responsible for ensuring. 9. The criterion or standard of performance is communicated clearly to local agencies, districts, and schools. 10. Students are performing at grade level. 11. District view. District standards and assessments need to be in place to ensure. 12. Schools have measurable objectives. Intermediate goals and a collection of baseline data. 13. What they are asking of the students aligns with the criteria or standards of performance. 14. The criteria or standards of performance are communicated clearly to the schools and students. 15. Students are performing at grade level. 17. School view. Principals and teachers translate district standards into student-friendly language and effective teaching and learning. Through achievement, aptitude or competency tests they. 18. Create a common assessment based on standards for all students around certain areas of the curriculum. 19. Ensure students are performing at grade level. 20. Grade, classroom and student view. Teachers of individual grades and classes work with criteria and assessments from higher levels to ensure that students are performing at grade level and provide additional assistance, service to students who are not. Assessment. Schools need measures for assessing how well students are doing. These measures should incorporate feedback from students, parents, the community, and other stakeholders. Types of assessment include 1. External assessment, such as state or district tests, communicates what the state or district considers important to teach and learn in school. 2. Classroom assessment. The day-to-day assessment of students by teachers in the classroom communicates to students and parents what the school and teacher value in student performance. 3. Alternative assessments are not typical standardized tests. Instead, they involve practices such as demonstrating a skill, answering open-ended questions, assembling portfolios of work, and instructor observation of students.
Okay, student, the next topic I will explain to you is various factors.
With classroom observation and stimulated recall interviews as key instruments, the present study investigated some of the factors that affected a group of learners' attention to teacher talk. It was found that learners paid more attention to teacher talk when they thought they did not understand a language feature, when teachers used various techniques to explain a language point, when the learners were the initiators of questions or at least involved in a language episode, and when peers reacted to their mistakes. On the other hand, learners often paid less or no attention to teacher talk when they thought they had understood a language feature already, when they were not involved in a language episode, when peers behaved in a distracting way, and when learners were concerned with losing or gaining face. In line with these findings, teachers can take certain measures to draw learners' attention when providing language information. For instance, they can help students correctly evaluate their own language knowledge and take the right attitude toward face. Try to involve as many learners as possible when discussing a language feature. Purposefully draw learners' attention to their incorrect language production through peer reaction and use various techniques such as paralinguistic cues and extralinguistic cues when talking to students. By raising learners' level of attention with these strategies, the effectiveness of teacher talk can be largely enhanced. It should be pointed out that the analysis in this study is far from thorough, restricted by the design of the larger study. The analysis only focused on observable factors that affected participating learners' attention to teacher talk. Some covert factors were left unexamined. Personality and culture, for instance. may affect the degree of learners' concern for face, which in turn, as illustrated above, may affect learners' degree of attention to teacher talk. Motivation may play a role in the amount of learner attention to teacher talk too. Further research is needed to understand these potential factors. A more serious note, as teachers, we need to come to grips with the fact that we really do not know everything, and there is no reason to assume that the students know nothing. But perhaps the most important question to ask is, what does a teacher asking questions of a class expect the class to learn from the questioning process? There are a number of things to consider in this scenario. Some teachers might answer that the reason to ask questions is to check for understanding, which benefits the teacher more than the student. Ostensibly, after we have taught a principle or concept, we could ask, does everybody understand? Even though we all realize that students not answering or even answering in the affirmative may not really understand, we still ask it. Are we aware of how many times we ask this useless question during a day of teaching? What we really end up telling the students when we ask this sort of question is, okay, here is your last chance. If you don't ask any questions, then you understand completely, and I am free to go on to the next subject, because I asked this fair question, and gave you a fair chance to answer. I am absolved from any lack of understanding on your part. The fallacy with this thinking is that sometimes the students do not understand that they do not understand. And if they do not know what they do not know, there is no way that they can ask a question about it. The other element about this question is that it is a yes or no question, and we all know it's all too easy to guess what answer the teacher wants to hear, and does not push the students into the higher order thinking stratosphere. How do we then go about appropriately checking for understanding? We ask specific questions. Great, you may be saying. But how do we do that? Typically, these are the questions that are thrown out to the class as tantalizing treats to be snatched up by all of the eager students. The reality is far different.
Next part, I want to explain about the family factor.
Although some families proactively engage in their child's education, research shows that teachers can initiate and encourage engagement from all families with positive results. Involving families of students who learn and think differently is especially important. Schools are required by federal law to seek input from a parent or guardian in the development of a student's individualized education program, IEP. Schools must also provide families with updates on their child's progress toward their IEP goals. In addition to these mandates, it has been shown that meaningful interactions between teachers and families of students who learn and think differently can build trust, inform instruction, and improve student outcomes. Who do your students call family? No two families are the same. Some have more than one primary caregiver. Some don't. In two adult households, sometimes the adults are married and sometimes they're not. Other factors also influence home life, like multi-generational households and those that provide foster care. In our resources, we use the term caregiver to refer to the primary adult or adults who are responsible for raising a child, such as parents, grandparents, and foster parents. When we talk about families, we mean the larger support system around a child, including siblings, grandparents, aunts, uncles, or anyone with a consistent presence in a child's life. The benefits of partnering with families. There are plenty of benefits to establishing relationships with a student's family. Research and classroom experience support these 5 benefits, especially for students who learn and think differently. Benefit 1. You can connect your lessons to a student's background knowledge, interests, and culture. You've seen it happen in your classroom before. When you tie a lesson to students' experiences, their interest skyrockets and they connect more deeply with the material. Benefit 2. You'll be able to identify appropriate accommodations or supports. Connecting with students' families can help you identify the best ways to differentiate or personalize instruction for students who learn and think differently. Families can provide insight about supports that have worked well at home and in prior years at school, and those that have not. Conversations about these effective supports can help build consistency between home and school. One easy way to get information about where a student needs support is to talk with families about how their child does during homework time. Based on their response, you can decide if you need to make changes to a student's instruction or modify homework assignments.
I want to explain about factor of poverty. What are the 5 contributory factors to poverty in the world?
Big 5 factors of poverty as a social problem include ignorance, disease, apathy, dishonesty, and dependency. These, in turn, contribute to secondary factors such as lack of markets, poor infrastructure, poor leadership, bad governance, underemployment, lack of skills, lack of capital, and others.
What are contributory factors that lead to the poverty?
1. Illiteracy is one of the biggest reasons behind the poverty among the population. 2. Increasing population is causing decreasing employment rate, which is boosting the poverty in our society. 3. Lack of funding for the needy people in our society. 4. Lack of social infrastructure of different aspects.
What are 4 contributory factors to poverty globally?
Here, we look at some of the top causes of poverty around the world. 1. Inadequate access to clean water and nutritious food. 2. Little or no access to livelihoods or jobs. 3. Conflict. 4. Inequality. 5. Poor education. 6. Climate change. 7. Lack of infrastructure. 8. Limited capacity of the government.
What are the 4 contributory factors to poverty?
4 factors that contribute to poor living conditions are unequal wealth distribution, disease, colonization, and past inequalities, as well as bad governance and corruption. Disease. According to a World Bank article, disease can contribute to poverty.
What are 4 contributory factors of violent crime locally?
Factors including poverty, neglect, low self-esteem, alcohol, and drug abuse can be connected to why people break the law.
What is the difference between causes and factors?
As nouns, the difference between factor and cause is that factor is obsolete, a doer, maker. A person who does things for another person or organization, while cause is the source of, or reason for. An event or action, that which produces or affects a result.
What are the transition words for cause and effect?
Cause and effect linking words. 1. Conjunctions. The most important conjunctions are because, as, since, and so. 2. Transitions. The most important transitions are therefore, consequently, and as a result. 3. Prepositions. The most important prepositions are due to and because of.
I want to know, how do you lead cause and effect diagram?
These are the best and most common practices when creating cause and effect diagrams. 1. Identify the problem. Define the process or issue to be examined. 2. Brainstorm. Discuss all possible causes and group them into categories. 3. Draw the backbone. 4. Add causes and effects. 5. Analyze.
The next topic, I want to explain about the class size factor. Class size should be defined based on the factors For example, ESL classes should be no larger than 15 students. Science classes involving labs require more attention, and so does writing. Younger people need smaller classes. Another factor in class size decision making is cost. The balance between optimum learning and cost the challenge. To reach an optimum class size, cost ratio, perhaps consideration of the mix of students, the subject matter and learning styles, teacher ed can be collected in terms. Do you want to know about the bullying factor? If you want to know, I will explain to you. The bullying factor risk factor for being the victim of bullying include having low understanding of emotional or social interactions, a tendency to become upset easily, or already suffering from anxiety or depression. Actual or perceived obesity of the victim is also a risk factor. Being underweight is highly associated with being bullied. Gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgender youth are more often victims of bullying compared to their heterosexual counterparts. Children who have disability or are immigrant or highly achieved minority are more vulnerable to being bullied as well. Listen to the fundraising explanation. Fundraising or fundraising is the process of soliciting and gathering voluntary contributions as money or other resources by requesting donations from individuals, business, charitable foundations, or government agencies. Project objectives. 1. Learning to research the reality of society. 2. Learning to work together and show solidarity. 3. Learning to decide. 4. To practice analysis and self-assessment, get hands-on experience. 5. To develop and express creativity.